Thanks very much, Basil. Good afternoon and welcome. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge some of the special guests that are joining us here today. First, of course, the great governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Our host, Basil Marani. Thank you for Howard Zemsky, President and CEO of Empire State University. From our county legislators Owen Steed and Mark Grozia, welcome. From the Niagara Falls City Council, council members Andrew Cuomo, Kristen Grandinetti, Ezra Scott, and Council Chairman Charles Walker. Thank you very much. I want to welcome my friend and colleague, Nathan McMurray, the supervisor of the town of Grand Island. The president and CEO of Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center, Joe Ruffalo. The president of Niagara University, one of our other great partners, the Reverend James Merritt. And finally, last but not least, from the Niagara and Erie County Building Trades, Paul Brown. And thank you to all the folks who organized today. We helped support this project, built the project, and turned out today to celebrate this great triumph in Niagara Falls development. Look, anytime Governor Cuomo comes to town, it means great news for Niagara Falls, and I'm confident that today is no exception. Let's be honest. Before the governor took office, hope was hard to come by here in Western New York. In Niagara Falls, we have one of the world's greatest natural assets right in our own backyard. In fact, right in the backyard of this hotel. But somewhere along the line, it simply wasn't enough anymore to compete in the modern economy. It wasn't just limited to us. Communities across upstate New York lagged behind, were left competing with their neighbors for resources, and frankly, saw little support from Albany. Thankfully, that is now a thing of the past. From the moment he took office, Governor Cuomo has consistently worked to spur growth in communities like Niagara Falls by partnering with us and taking a regional, bottom-up approach to economic development. The success stories are all around us in Western New York and in Niagara Falls. Governor, this is the third hotel within walking distance of the new Riverway to open its doors since you announced funding to remove this section of the former Robert Moses Parkway. As you probably saw on the way in, there's a fourth getting ready to open a courtyard by Marriott just a few hundred yards from where we are. They're getting closer and closer to opening day by day. You had the vision to protect and restore the natural environment at and around Niagara Falls. You knew this was our greatest asset, and you knew the private sector would follow with investment if the state did the right thing. What a fantastic vision, Governor Cuomo. Thank you. Yeah. The vision thing is very important. This is the third hotel done by the Marani family in Niagara Falls, New York. And I want to tell a story. When I first met Faisal Marani and his dad, Ashok, who's sitting next to him, they were starting work on their first project here in the Four Points by Sheridan. That's also on the waterfront. It's up near the Grand Island Bridge. And if you came across the Grand Island Bridge to get here, you saw that big new hotel on the right-hand side. That's the Four Points Hotel. At that time, it was vacant. And Tom DeSantis, my senior planner, and I went out. We were looking at getting involved in a project out there with the NFC Development Corporation to aid in the redevelopment of that hotel. And we kind of snuck in the front door, and Faisal and his dad were in one of the ballrooms. It was empty aside from one chair, which they were moving around the room, and they kept sitting on the chair. Then they would look up. Then they'd get up, they'd move the chair, they'd look up again. And we felt kind of embarrassed. I think I gave a little cough. I walked over and I said, I'm sorry, I'm the mayor. It looked like you were doing something. I didn't mean to intrude, but I wanted to introduce myself. But I can't help but being curious, what were you doing? And they said, look, if we're going to do this hotel project, the asset of this property is that it's on the waterfront. So we're looking at that waste wall below the window, and we're checking. We want to be certain if we do this project that every person in the room, even the person sitting at the back table, has a view of the water. And I turned to Tom DeSantis and I said, these are our guys, right? They see the vision of reconnecting the people with the waterfront. But it would not have been possible without you, Governor. Your vision is driving the revitalization of Western New York and the revitalization of Niagara Falls. But before we hear from the Governor, I'd like to introduce someone else who's played a critical role in the revitalization of Western New York. He is the president and CEO of Empire State Development. He is also a fantastic developer in his own right. And are you coming any closer to being done with that camel? The Governor said that I could have your camel when you're done with it. You remember at the State of the State, the wise men on the camels? And you had a much nicer camel than I did. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, Howard Zemsky.
All right, well, you work for $1, you get to pick your camel. Thank you, Mayor, for that curious introduction. I won't explain the camel any further than that. It's great to be with everyone. Nice to be here. Always great to be in Niagara Falls. As you know, Niagara Falls has been a key focus of our economic development revitalization strategy in Western New York now for almost 6 years. It goes back to our original plan. It incorporates and benefits from Buffalo Billion 1, from Buffalo Billion 2, from REDC, from New York Power Authority, a lot of different sources of funding the governor has given us, but it's always measured against one plan, and that's really the benefit of the way the governor does economic development. It allows us to develop our own plan here locally and regionally, and then we get the tools to advance the plan. Our plan was and is to connect Niagara Falls back to the waterfront. You see the changes to the scenic parkway connecting the falls residents and visitors back to the waterfront. This has led, as the mayor said, to what is now almost 4 new hotels along the parkway. And I want to recognize and congratulate Faisal and his father Ashok. Congratulations. We're extremely pleased and proud to have your investment here. Another primary goal of ours was to upgrade the state park infrastructure. Almost $70 million, or over $70 million, has already been invested, whether it's Luna Island, Terrapin Point, Three Sisters, Cave of the Winds, the park infrastructure. That was another key component of the plan developed here. Going forward, we are reimagining and reclaiming the rim of the gorge, the greatest recapture of green space since Olmsted, over 140 acres on the rim of the gorge, and a commensurate reduction in asphalt. So continuing that same theme from the former Robert Moses South to the Parkway North, and connecting the city back again to the waterfront. We are going to lead a comprehensive solicitation for programming to take advantage of the Niagara River and the gorge. The governor, as I said, has empowered us to develop our own plan, and together, all the elements of the plan, I think, constitute a compelling, incredible opportunity to leverage the assets that you have here. Niagara Falls draws more people than most of our national parks, and than many of our national parks combined. You are an amazing asset, not only for the city, but for the whole region and the state. So our whole strategy is to really take advantage of the greatness that you have here in Niagara Falls, and that you are, and I think you're seeing it every day. So whether it's connecting the falls back to the water, reclaiming hundreds of acres of green space, upgrading the hotel product in the falls, improving park infrastructure, improving and expanding the attractions, or restoring the gorge, which is a major go-forward priority, of the governor, we are going to extend stays, make the product of Niagara Falls more compelling. We're going to attract the world, and we're going to create at least 5,000 new jobs if we can successfully extend stays, which we know we're already doing. There's only one person who has ever made this kind of commitment to Western New York and to Niagara Falls. His name is Governor Cuomo. Please give him an appropriate recognition.
To celebrate with you, first to Faisal Marani and his father, congratulations on this beautiful, beautiful facility and business. We wish you all the best, and we have very good feelings about your success. Let's give them a round of applause. Mayor Paul Deister, who's a great friend and is doing a really great job. Let's give him a round of applause. Howard Zemsky, who is a, what did we call him, a fantastic developer in his own right. Very nice, very nice. He is a fantastic developer in his own right. He also runs the Empire State Development Corporation, which is the main economic development vehicle for the state. And he has done really extraordinary work. If you get to know Howard, he's not a man with a tremendous sense of humor, but that's okay, because he's very good with what he does. So let's give him a round of applause. And it's my pleasure to be here. We're starting a new year, and in the beginning of the year, the President does the State of the Union address we'll hear soon, which is the executive's vision for the coming year. Governors do the State of the State, which I did a little differently this year. I did it all throughout the state on different regional visions, because this state, God bless us, is a very diverse state. It really is different throughout the different regions, so we had a plan for each region. And I just issued the state budget, which gives you all the numbers and the facts and really puts the meat to the vision. And when you start to decide which way to go, first pause to take a look around and where you've been. We've made great progress over these past few years. You'd be hard-pressed to find a government in modern history that has done as much as we have. We have taken on the most aggressive rebuilding of the state in modern history. Over 100 billion, we're rebuilding train stations, roads, bridges, airports all across the state. Why? Because we needed to stay competitive. The construction itself creates jobs, and it lays the foundation for private sector growth. So we've come a long way. Two lessons we brought to Albany. First lesson was fiscal management. Was you cannot spend more money than you make. It's not a complicated formula. It's relatively straightforward. It's harder to do in practice than it sounds, but it's a straightforward formula. It's after New Year's. We're all hopefully still on our New Year's resolution and our diet. The diet formula is also simple. You have to take in fewer calories than you burn. That's the formula. It is foolproof. If you take in fewer calories, burn more, exercise, etc., you will lose weight. Fine formula, difficult to do in implementation. Fiscal formula, spend less money than you take in. I also am working on this formula with my 3 daughters in college. I'm failing there, but I was successful with the state legislature. New York State for 50 years increased spending at a higher rate than income for the people of the state was increasing. Think about that for a second. The state was increasing the rate of spending faster than the people in the state were making money. That's why they talked about New York high tax state. I feel like I'm paying more and more of my income for taxes, because you were for 50 years. And by the way, it wasn't those Democrats who spend a lot of money, but the Republicans, they're good with money. No, 50 years, Nelson Rockefeller, Republican, spent more per year than any governor since in 50 years. Built a lot, the SUNY system, etc. But 11% more he spent every year. Hugh Carey, 8% more every year. My father, 6% more. George Pataki, Republican conservative, 5% more. All of this at a time when inflation was 4%. So, incomes are going up 4%, home values are going up 4%, and the government is literally spending 11, 8, 6, 5% more. It's unsustainable. That's why people just couldn't take it anymore. And they started to leave. So what was the answer? Reduce state spending. Yeah, but we don't like to. We like so many good things to do. So many groups want money. Everybody wants money. And yes, it's so much easier to say than no, right? You're a politician, you want to make friends. You make friends saying yes. And that's what the state did for 50 years. We stopped that. We have brought spending to the lowest level of increase since they have kept numbers. Our spending rate over 6 years, 1.4% every year, lowest rate since they've kept numbers. Now, you take in fewer calories, good things happen. You reduce spending, now you can do two things. You can increase spending on things that produce jobs, invest in economic development, invest in building new hotels. Why? Because that generates more economy and more revenue. And second, you can cut taxes. And if you cut taxes, you're more business friendly, you're more family friendly. That will also stimulate the economy. And that's exactly what we did. We invested in economic development and we cut taxes. Today, every person, every business at every rate in the state pays a lower tax rate today than they did 5 years ago. Every middle class, working poor, businesses, corporate, estate tax, all of it down lower than it was before. Second lesson was this: upstate matters. What does that mean? That means that for decades, the state legislature basically ignored upstate New York. Why? Because the state legislature is predominantly from New York City. That's the population center. The normal instinct of an assemblyman or a senator is to represent their district. So for decades, the state legislature focused on New York City and Long Island. That's where the funding went, that's where the money went, that's where the population center is, that's where the political donors are predominantly. And the state government was responsive to downstate. In the meantime, upstate New York was going through a terrible economic transformation. We were losing manufacturing jobs, and upstate was desperate to have someone to help them, and the state government was absent. We flipped that 180 degrees. And I said, when I started, the priority for this state is investing in the economy in upstate New York. That's what needs help. And if we're smart, not just moral, ethical, we're one state, we're one community, do the right thing by our brothers and sisters in the same state. If you want to be pragmatic and smart, it's smart to invest in upstate New York, because the more you grow the economy in upstate New York, the better for upstate and the better for downstate. Because at the end of the day, we're one state, we're one set of books, etc. And I said, I will not sign a budget that does not invest in upstate New York. Since then, over the past 5.5 years, $25 billion has been invested in upstate New York. The most money in my history. And it has worked. It has worked. The economy has turned 180 degrees. Today, we have 7.9 million jobs in the state of New York. You know how many that is? That's more private sector jobs than we've ever had in the history of the state of New York. That's what that is. And did we invest in Western New York? You're darn right we did. Largest investment I made right out of the box was a pledge for $1 billion to Western New York. Now, I learned a political lesson right outside of the box. When you pledge $1 billion to Western New York, you know what happens? Western New York is a little happy. They're not that happy because they're a little cynical. They're not really sure they believe they're ever going to get the $1 billion. The other thing that happens is every other part of the state is really mad at you. Every other part of the state really believes you're going to give Western New York $1 billion. And they are jealous because they're not getting the $1 billion. But I had no problem justifying it. Why? Because the place that needed the most amount of help was Western New York. The place that had gotten the least and suffered the most was Western New York. And also the capacity to grow and develop and to really turn around was Western New York. And that is exactly what has happened. We invested what we call the Buffalo Billion, actually turned out to be several $1 billion, and it has worked extraordinarily well. 28,000 new jobs in Western New York. When we started, the unemployment rate was 8.9%. Today, it is 5%, believe it or not. That is a turnaround. Home sales are up 11%. The prices of those homes are up 19%. And the best news of all, what warms my heart, is that the number of millennials, as they call them now, young people, coming back to Western New York is higher than ever. After all those decades where young people left Western New York because they thought their future was somewhere else, the jobs were somewhere else, they are now coming home. How beautiful is that? Niagara Falls has been doing great. The spending of tourists, tourism spending, has been up 24%. We invested $75 million in the state park and the surrounding projects. I'm proud of that. The scenic highway, I think, is going to have dividends that continue for years to come. It was a design mistake. It should have been undone decades ago. It wasn't. To seal yourself off from your greatest asset made absolutely zero sense. And redoing that, I think, is going to be a major economic boost for all of Niagara Falls. The Maid of the Mist we saved, 6 new hotels are coming out of the ground. It really is an exciting time, but what's even better is it's only the beginning. It really is only the beginning. I presented a new budget that the legislature is now considering, and I'm very excited about it. First, what the budget does, the plan does, is it focuses on middle-class families, working men and women. Why? Because one thing the presidential election said, was there are many people in this country, many middle-class people in this country, who are angry and who feel like they've been left behind. You know why? Because they've been left behind. When you look at real wages, the middle class has gone backwards for 20 years. And all the other costs have increased. Cars have increased. College has increased. College, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. How can you even afford it? How is it even feasible? And you want to talk about being angry. It's one thing that your life is not what you expected. You didn't make the progress in your life. But that your child's life is not going to be better? That was the whole dream. That was the hope. You worked. But your child was going to get a better education and they were going to do better than you've done. And many middle-class families just don't believe that anymore. So this year we want to start by focusing and helping the middle class. We want to start right out of the box by doing an additional tax cut for the middle class, because the best thing we can say to our middle class brothers and sisters is, you know what? Government is going to take less of your paycheck every week. And in our budget, we propose a middle class tax cut. Second thing I want to do, which will be the first state in the nation, free college tuition for any family, $125,000. And let me tell you why I believe this is a game changer. 50 years ago, we provided free high school. Why? Because we made the determination that you needed high school to be successful. You needed high school to be a good citizen and to be productive. So the public paid for high school. And 50 years ago, if you had a high school diploma, you could do it. You could work at the plant, you could work manufacturing, you could drive a truck, you could figure it out. What high school was 50 years ago, college is today. You can't do it without college. This nation can't do it without college. 30 years ago, this nation had more college-educated people than any country on the globe. Today, we're number 11. This state, when I go to attract businesses and bring in the innovative industries of tomorrow, you know what they say to me? They don't ask me about the tax rate, and they don't ask me about the weather. They say, can I get an educated workforce? It's all here. I was at the GM plant, not far from here, a few weeks ago, $300 million retrofit. They're building a new automobile engine for GM cars. And I went through the factory, $300 million renovation, building engines. You know the one thing I didn't see? Tools. No wrenches, no screwdrivers. At an engine building factory, all automated. And every 20 feet there's a computer keyboard with someone tapping a lot of keys, looking at a screen, troubleshooting the machines. It's here. You need a college education. We need you to have a college education. Well, go out and buy it, pay for it yourself. Really? Average debt for most young people coming out of college, $30,000. How do you start life with a $30,000 debt? That used to be a mortgage, but at least you had a house. Now you have $30,000 in college debt. It is smart for us as a society to see our young people getting a college education. $125,000 to me is step one. Let's start there, but we should keep going until we can offer every child in this state the dream of a college education. So we can say, I don't care how much money, the dream. So we can say, I don't care how much money your family has, I don't care the zip code you came from, I don't care the neighborhood, I don't care if you came from the right side of the tracks or the wrong side of the tracks. you can have a college education, and you can be whatever you want to be. And that really is the essence of what made this country and this state so great. And the third thing we want to do is invest in jobs, and continue to invest in jobs, and middle-class jobs, and continue to grow tourism. We know what works, we just have to continue to build on it. And I have proposed another $500 million for Western New York for more economic development, and I am proud of it because it's not a gift to Western New York. It is an investment in Western New York that is going to pay dividends. Niagara Falls has that 11-mile stretch, downtown, vacant properties, people sitting on property, valuable property that could actually create income. And I want to see ESD step up to the plate and reclaim some of those properties, get them back on the tax roll, let them develop. We want to see a world-class destination developed on Goat Island. It can be the best, literally, I believe, of international quality. ESD is going to put out an RFP, request for proposals, for a lodge and more recreation activity on this side of the falls, right? The one thing Canada beat us to was they had more recreational activities on their side. We now have the hotels, we need the activities, and between the lodge on Goat Island and a RFP for just that, creative recreational activities on this side of the falls, you're going to see more traffic and more hotel rooms being filled up. And we're also going to invest an additional $1 million in the ecological preservation of the gorge, because that is the asset, right? And you want to protect the asset and keep the asset pure. We did the hard part. The hard part was building the momentum. The hard part was getting people to believe, once again, that we've done. The hard part is to start moving the stone, right? Once you get the stone moving, it's easier to keep it moving. The hard part was getting people to believe that Western New York had a future, that it wasn't just about the old days, it wasn't about what we used to do, it wasn't about the history, that life is about tomorrow and what we can do. And getting Western New York to believe this wasn't just another hollow promise, it wasn't just another plan, it wasn't just another proposal. We're going to do this, that we're actually going to rebuild Western New York. We're going to turn it around. We're going to get jobs coming back. We're going to get businesses coming back. We're going to get the young people coming back. That's all been done. People believe. Faisal put money down to show that he believed. Goldman Sachs invested in a hotel in Niagara Falls, first time ever, because they believe. And Goldman Sachs does not believe easily. They don't operate on love. They operate on profit. And they are betting on Niagara Falls. And that's a smart bet, because the energy and the success is all about around us. You can feel it now. You can feel the synergy in the region. Buffalo is doing well. Niagara Falls is doing well. They're feeding off each other. The economic activity compounds itself one to the other. This budget, this plan, just takes it to the next step. This $500 million is going to generate more hotels, more recreation, more jobs, more taxes, more revenue, and continue the growth. We just have to get it done. And I need you to join with me in saying to those legislators in Albany, you pass this budget, it's the right plan, you believe in Western New York, you invest in Western New York, and let's put the politics aside. Don't get infected or affected by what's happening in Washington. Stay away from the gridlock, stay away from the politics. It's very simple at the end of the day. Put people above politics. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, if you're a short person, tall person, I really don't care. I just want a legislature and a government that represents the people, and we're not Democrats and Republicans first, we are New Yorkers first, and let's act that way.
Thanks again for coming out this afternoon. On behalf of the Marani family, I'd like to invite everyone here to a reception on the first floor near the doors where you came in. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.